ReTorque of the lift on my Toyota Tacoma. Well, good afternoon everybody, and welcome back to the channel. That's right, it is time to take the Tacoma back in and have the lift retorqued. Now, if you're not familiar with it, if you do have a lift, you need to go back in at some point. Every place I've been so far suggests 500 miles. But you need to go back in and have everything retorqued. Because, you know, they do loosen a lot of things. Of course, any equipment that they add is going to be bolted on. So you do need to take it in and have everything retorqued to make sure that those bolts that they've added or replaced are tight, obviously, right? So that's what we're doing today. We're going to head off to the shop now and get the Tacoma retorqued. Okay, just got out of the shop. What a pleasant experience it was there. It's Texas Tire, by the way. That's where I have my work done. If you're in the valley, in the RGV, in the Harlingen, Brownsville area, great place to go. They do a fantastic job. But anyway, I would advise that if you're going to take yours in to be retorqued, you know probably it takes quite a while to go ahead and have the lift put on. The last thing you want to do is go in there and have to sit and wait for 3 or 4 hours while they finish the lift that they were working on when you pulled up. So I called ahead just to make sure that, you know, they had time to get me in. And they did. I pulled in and was able, after maybe 5 minutes of waiting, because they were just finishing actually a retorque on another lift they had done. So I pulled in. 5 minutes later, I drive my truck into the shop, which, by the way, kudos to Texas Tire. They asked me if I wanted to drive it in, and I'm like, well, sure. Now, part of that's probably because of what's going on in the world right now. You know, nobody wants anybody else near them, let alone sitting in their vehicle. And part of it, for me anyway, was just to be able to drive it myself. It is a manual transmission, and I do know these guys. I recognized them. That did the install before, can drive a manual transmission, but still, it's my baby. I want to make sure it's treated right, you know. So I did drive it in and I did drive it out, and I'm thankful that they offered to let me do that. I think that's fantastic. As far as the retorque itself, it shouldn't take any more than 10 minutes. I think this took me 5 minutes. They just go around, retighten all the bolts, you know, make sure that the work that they did is still secure and that everything is still up to spec for your particular lift. Now, a little bit about the lift. What I had done, you know, prior to this, I had a 3.2 ready lift, just a block and spacer lift. And I was having a bouncing problem. Primarily, I think, because of the wheel and tire setup that I have on the truck. They're heavier, they're bigger wheels and tires, and you need something a little more robust in the form of a lift to be able to handle them, right? So I went from that lift to what I'm going to call is a hybrid lift. And by hybrid, I mean it has Bilstein struts on the front wrapped in new coils. And this is another ready lift, by the way. And then in the rear, I replaced the stock shocks with Bilstein. I believe there were 5100s, if I'm not mistaken. 6112s in the front and 5100s in the back, I believe. And I got to tell you, it made a profound difference. You can probably tell as I'm driving the truck. You know, I'm not sitting here bouncing all over the place. And it was a pretty extreme bounce before. You know, that was a railroad track. But so much so that I was concerned that the truck might not be safe on the freeway because it really bounced a lot. At least in my opinion, it felt like a lot of movement. So this solved my problem. I'm very happy with it. I would highly recommend, unless you're going to go with a heck of a lot more expensive full suspension lift, going with something at least like this. You know, it works fantastically. I think all in, it was about $1,700, something like that, to have the whole thing done, if I'm not mistaken. So while it's not the cheapest lift, I mean, you can do a block and spacer ready lift for, right in the $600 to $700 range. So you're about, almost 3 times the price, I guess. But in this case, you get what you pay for. You know, you don't really want to cheap out on the lift because you're going to pay for it in the end, and probably you're going to end up replacing it, as I did, with something else to give you a little bit better ride. So I'm happy with it. As far as the torque goes and all of that, wasn't a lot. Nothing had fallen off or loosened up so much that it was dangerous or anything like that. So that all went perfectly well. Now, talking about the ride, while I'm riding on this very bumpy road, I do want to mention that even with this lift, it's a little bit firmer ride. You know, it does have, as I mentioned, new shock struts and coilovers. I do still have the blocks in the back. I opted to leave those. They're 2-inch blocks because I don't really notice anything in the rear, and I don't now as far as any kind of an issue with those for the truck. But just be advised that if you're going to go with particularly new coils and Bilsteins, you're going to end up with probably a little bit firmer ride than you had from stock, which is exactly what I've got. The ride is definitely firmer than it was from stock, but it's not so bad that it beats you up while you're driving down the road. I mean, let's be honest, it is a truck, and you are going to feel the road, as we did back there. I don't know if you could tell, but that was a fairly bumpy road, and you probably heard my voice bounce around a little bit as I was taking some of those bumps. But it did solve my bouncing problem as far as just driving down a smooth road and having the truck do that, and that was my real goal. As far as the height on this lift, you know, it's interesting. I actually ended up with about a 1/2 inch more lift in the front than in the rear, which is strange because it's supposed to be a 3.2. It's still a 3.2 lift, right? It's supposed to be 3 inches in the front, 2 inches in the rear. The rear pretty much maintained what I had before. Again, it was just new shocks, so the 2-inch block lift was maintained. But about a 1/2 inch extra in the front by getting rid of the previous setup that I had. Now, I'm thinking there's going to be some settling. I am going to do a video down the road here. I have the measurements from the first, or right after I had the lift installed. So I want to do a little comparison to see if I've gotten or had any settling in the front, particularly, to kind of truly level out the truck. Now, I've had a couple of people mention that, well, you know, you should go back. It's not level. You should go ahead and get it level. 1/2 inch doesn't really matter to me. It's not something that you can really see with the eye. And also, because of the way that the fenders are in the Tacoma, they're not perfectly round in the front and the back. So you really can't just look at the truck and say, well, that's off, unless you're way off, you know, then obviously you can tell. But I don't think you can pick up a 1/2 inch with the naked eye. So it's certainly nothing that I would be looking to go in and have anything else done with. I'm perfectly happy with the look that I have. And going back to that extra 1/2 inch, there is a part of me that hopes that it's maintained, because I am looking still, considering putting a steel bumper or an aluminum bumper on the front. And I'm thinking that extra 1/2 inch will come in handy, because it will probably drop the front just a little bit when I put that aluminum bumper on there, because it is, of course, heavier than what's there right now. So anyway, I just wanted to get on here, kind of show you guys or tell you guys what I'm doing, and to make sure that you're aware that if you've had your truck lifted and if by chance the shop didn't mention it to you, you definitely need to get back in there and have it retorqued after about 500 miles, just to make sure that everything is copacetic and the way that it should be. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. If you had a lift done, any issues, and did you remember to take it back in and have it retorqued? Also, real quick, if you're interested, check out my other channel. It is RobMotive JT, all about my 2020 Jeep Gladiator. Don't forget to click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos or giveaways. And if you would, smash that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there.